Hey guys, this is Gary, and this is another video on a Lightroom Photoshop Roundtrip editing session. So this is a portrait, so it's a little different than the last one I did, which was about replacing a sky. So I wanted to go over a few of the portrait tools available in Lightroom, and then we're going to take this into Photoshop and finish it up. I just wanted to mention, I don't know how it's going to look on your screens, but I've noticed that when I watch the resulting video, it's really oversaturated and looks not good. So if you're looking at a photo that's very oversaturated, this girl's lips look red and her cheeks are really, rosy, overly rosy, I should say, then it's actually not that way. It ain't me. It ain't the photo. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's probably the recording software I'm using. So let's get started. The first thing is I want to bring out more highlights and detail in the hair here and here. Okay. So in order to do that, I'm going to go grab an adjustment brush, and then I'm going to double click on the word effect to make sure I get all of the adjustments back to their default state. And I'm just going to increase exposure by about 1 stop. Now, when I come over here, I'm going to start painting, and you can see that wherever I'm painting, the hair gets brighter. Okay? I'm going to take my highlight slider and move it to the right just a little bit to bring out highlights. And then I'm going to take my clarity slider and move that to the right just a little bit as well, maybe to about 20. And you can see the difference, right? Look at, here's before and after. So we've got a lot more detail in the hair. I think that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to back off on my exposure to about 60 or something. All right, that looks pretty good. Now you can see all the flyaways. We're going to get rid of those in Photoshop. Make this background neutral. It's got a little bit of a warm color cast to it, and I need it to be neutral, meaning no color. Where we're going is I want to make this background pure white. And in order for that to happen, I have to make sure that it starts out as being a neutral gray, not this kind of yellowish gray. So that's very easily fixed in Lightroom with this tool here, the white balance tool. I'm going to grab the eyedropper, and if I hover over the image, you look down the bottom of the box, it indicates the red, the green, and the blue channel brightness percentages, and you can see that they're not all equal. That's how you can tell that a color is neutral, when the red, the green, and the blue channels have equal luminance values. So the blue is slightly lower, which moves this thing a little bit toward yellow. So I'm just going to simply click on the background. That shifts the entire image, including the background, to neutral. Now, what that did basically was cool down everything, and it makes your skin look a little bit too sort of magenta-ish, bluish, just a bit. So we're going to fix that. So I'm going to grab the Radial Tool. And the thing about the Radial Tool is this Invert Mask thing is kind of confusing. So I want to sort of illustrate what that actually means. So without Invert Mask checked, I'm going to bring my exposure way up just to show you what happens here. So when I click and drag to create this big oval, everything outside the oval gets affected by the adjustment, in this case exposure. Everything inside is not, and there's a gradual transition from being adjusted to not adjusted based upon the feather slider here, which in my case is set to 50. All right, but that's not what we want here. We want the opposite of that. So if I check Invert Mask, now everything inside the oval is affected. So I'm just going to basically change its rotation a little bit, and obviously I don't want to brighten her, so I'm going to double click on exposure. What I do want to do, however, is warm up her skin a little bit. So I'm going to take my temperature slider and move it to about maybe 10 or 11, just enough to bring back the warmth that we lost when we changed the white balance adjustment, cooled down the image to make this background neutral. You see what I'm doing here? I'm just bringing back the natural skin tones. Okay, that's done. By the way, down here is what's known as the toolbar. If you hit your T key, it'll go away. If you hit your T key again on the keyboard, it'll come back. I recommend setting Show Edit Pins to Auto. So you have 4 choices here. Set it to auto, and here's why. When I'm inside the image, in this case we have the radial gradient tool, I guess it's called the Radial Tool. When I hover in the image, you can see the oval and the outline and this edit pin in the middle. And when I hover off of the image, it goes away. That's because I've got Show Edit Pin set to auto. This is a good way to work. All right, so I'm going to hit Done. Now we're going to do the last thing, which is I'm going to grab the Spot Removal tool and make sure it's set to heal. And I've got my opacity set to about 42. I'm going to zoom in, and I'm going to paint under her eye. And what that's going to do is just, what it's going to do at the moment is going to create a big mess because Lightroom wants to grab pixels from her hair. We're going to move that to her cheek where I know the skin is smooth. And what that does is it minimizes the shadow under her eye. It doesn't get rid of it because I've got opacity set to 42. If I set it to 100, see what happens? I mean, it got rid of the shadow completely, and that looks a little bit bizarre. So I'm going to move it back to about 42. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, so now I'm going to go over to her camera left eye, which is actually her right eye, and I'm going to do the same thing. That creates another instance of the spot removal. And let's see, it grabs skin. All right, that's not bad. It grabs skin from her nose, which is also relatively smooth, so that's pretty good. Okay, now you can see with those ugly push pins in the way, it's kind of hard to tell how this spot removal adjustments are working. If I hover off, it's much easier. Again, set it to auto. So anyway, done with that. So I'm going to hit done. Everything else is going to be done in Photoshop. So, okay, I'm going to end this video. This will be part 1. Part 2 will be bringing this into Photoshop and finishing up the edit. And by the way, this is where we're going. This is where we're going to wind up. See how the hair is nice and full, and the flyaway hair is gone. All right, I'll see you guys in part 2. Bye.